Охуеть.
Ого! Ого! Что это такое? Командир! Ебало!
Russia and the separatists are seizing more territory, terrorizing more citizens, and refusing to participate in serious negotiations. Let there be no doubt about who is blocking the prospect of peace here. We are not choosing a military outcome. We are choosing a peaceful solution through diplomacy, but you cannot have a one-sided peace.
NATO is expanding its network of command centers in Eastern Europe, all in preparation against a possible Russian aggression over the escalating conflict in eastern Ukraine. And NATO defense ministers have signed off on strengthening forces in Eastern Europe. CCTV's Sandra Gathman reports from Brussels, where the NATO meeting has been taking place.
Firm steps were taken on Thursday by NATO countries to set up a so-called spearhead force, a 5,000-strong military unit equipped to respond quickly to any threat from Russia, operating from several bases in Baltic states, Poland, Romania, and Bulgaria.
Germany will play a very appropriate role in it. The decisions of today are not just so that NATO will be more flexible, faster, and stronger in its response. It is important for the internal strength of NATO.
NATO has already beefed up its presence in Europe since military tensions began flaring with Russia over Ukraine. The alliance has increased its air surveillance and conducted more than 200 exercises in Eastern Europe during the last year alone. But fresh advances by pro-Russian rebels in East Ukraine have led to new calls from President Petro Poroshenko for NATO allies to send weapons to Kiev's struggling forces. So far, the U.S. has been alone in contemplating the option. European Union countries like Germany, France, and Italy have openly opposed any military escalation.
I think there's a concern that by doing so, the Russians will increase their offensives against Ukraine. They'll use it as a pretext to possibly take more of Ukraine's territory.
Russian advances have been a top concern for neighboring countries like Georgia, a country NATO has been cozying up to. NATO is also concerned about Russia's presence in southern regions of Georgia. It's why they've decided to set up a military training camp there and accelerate the talks to make Georgia a member of NATO. Britain, France, and Germany say they will be among the framework nations that will take turn leading the new rapid reaction force. Spain, Italy, and Poland may also take on leadership roles.
There is a way the president can have it both ways concerning his no boots on the ground commitment. That would involve private military contractors. They are boots on the ground, but not technically the U.S. military. It is a dangerous job. The family of one CIA contractor killed in the Benghazi terror attacks is suing the U.S. government for $2 million now. The heirs of Glenn Doherty say the government had inadequate security at its facilities in the Libyan city. Tonight, correspondent Doug McElway reports on the people who do a lot of the dirty work while flying under the radar.
As the debate in Washington rages over boots on the ground in the war against ISIS, one component of America's national security capability is quietly being left out of public discussion.
Private security contractors, or PSC, our security contractor. It's basically, there's all different facets of it. I mean, for us, it was protection. It was protecting case officers, CIA case officers overseas, doing low-profile protection.
From cooks to drivers, from maintenance people to bodyguards, contractors are increasingly taking over duties traditionally performed by troops. In the Foreign Service and spy agencies, contractor duties can run right up to the edge of what a combat soldier does.
There are virtually no limits on what contractors can do except offensive air or ground combat operations. So virtually anything else with legal authority, which is granted, contractors can perform whatever the mission may be.
Mark Geist, Chris Peranto, and John Teagan are contractors and subjects of the book 13 Hours, the inside account of what really happened in Benghazi. It's difficult to distinguish their qualities from those of a soldier. Indeed, most paramilitary contractors are former military.
I have Crohn's disease, so military discharged me. I didn't know what I was going to do. So it was a way for me to continue to work, earn still have a job, but also do what I like doing, which was still soldiering, rangering.
The pay is vastly better than soldiering. Contractors can earn $140,000 a year or more. As the war on terror has expanded, so has the federal government's reliance on contractors. DoD contractor spending has nearly tripled from 2000 to 2008, while the State Department's expenditures more than quadrupled. The use of contractors offers advantages, allowing agencies to bypass the military chain of command, congressional debates over funding, as well as the semantic interpretations of what boots on the ground means.
The White House will want to keep the whole contractor story out of the news. They can't pull it out of the regular force and make it happen without contractors. And frankly, there's many skilled, qualified, experienced contractors who can perform things that the military, quite frankly, can't do.
Those advantages have drawn criticism that too much reliance on contracting risks an unaccountable mercenary force that weakens the democratic tradition of citizen soldiers.
Several videos have appeared on the web purporting to show English-speaking foreigners in Ukraine's army uniform in the port city of Mariupol.
Stop, подождите, скажите, что это?
On my face, please.
Now, this man was caught on camera as a journalist trying to question him on the situation in the city shortly after it was shelled. And here's another video.
Maybe explode, maybe not, so blow up in situ.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, the description under that video claims that the person in uniform seen at the start of the clip is American. However, I should say there is no proof that that is definitely the case. The details of the patch on his shoulder, they are indistinguishable, and the man's facial features cannot be made out. Other videos have previously emerged, those showing foreigners among the ranks of the Ukrainian National Guard, which is made up of volunteer troops. To discuss this further, I'm joined live now by Nebojsa Malic, Foreign Affairs Analyst. Welcome. I mean, you'll have had a chance to look at that video by now. What's your personal opinion on this? Do you think that there are Westerners, shall we put it, there's some discrepancies over definite identities, but Westerners fighting on the side of the Kiev forces?
Absolutely. I think the clips prove it beyond reasonable doubt. In fact, to me, the accent of the get out of my face man seemed very much military American. People have said maybe Canadian, maybe British. I don't think it's British. It could theoretically be Canadian, but it sounds to me like American military. This is perfectly in line with mainstream NATO policy of intervening in Ukraine, providing ammunition, weapons, and even advisors to the Kiev junta. Just this morning, the Bosnian defense minister resigned over pressure to sell weapons to the Kiev government and ammunition. So again, we've got this concerted effort in the West to aid the junta's repression of the population in the East, combined with this propaganda war, basically blaming everything on this phantom Russian invasion for which no evidence has ever been produced.
I mean, if we were talking English or American soldiers fighting out in Ukraine for Kiev, where would they have come from? I mean, we've heard in the past claims of Western private military companies being involved. They are just claims, but is that the most likely scenario, do you think?
I would imagine so. I mean, consider that U.S. advisors were working with the Croatians back in the 1990s, and that the Kiev government has repeatedly invoked this precedent as something they would like to see there. And consider persistent rumors that have never been conclusively proven nor disproven that former Blackwater, now I believe calling itself Academy, has been involved exactly in that particular area from Odessa to Mariupol. I wouldn't be surprised in the least that these were mercenaries.
Just briefly, I mean, you do hear stories, I've personally heard stories such as this. Why do you think we're not seeing substantial proof, though, if that is the case?
Well, it depends on whether these people are engaged in combat activities. Very recently, Mariupol hasn't been a combat zone, not after the September ceasefire, and all of a sudden now it is. And you have these people basically caught in the open, and obviously having some very poor operational security practices. Otherwise, nobody would have ever spoken English to a local TV reporter if they were trying to keep a secret. And this man obviously blurted out his emotions. So I'm guessing mercenaries, I'm guessing in a sort of an advisory guidance role as opposed to a combat role, leaving that to various Western volunteers who join the volunteer battalions out of some personal Nazi sympathies. But this is strictly professional.
Interesting to hear your thoughts. Thanks so much for coming on RT. Nebojša Malić, foreign affairs expert there, speaking to us.
And President Putin continues to call for new peace plans as his troops roll through the Ukrainian countryside, and he absolutely ignores every agreement that his country has signed in the past and he has signed recently, including in Minsk. We have to stand. We, the United States and Europe as a whole, has to stand with Ukraine at this moment.
An appeal for peace in Ukraine from Pope Francis. As violence in the east mounts, the pontiff offers his thoughts and prayers.
Il mio pensiero va all'amato popolo ucraino.
My thoughts go to the beloved people of Ukraine. Unfortunately, the situation is worsening, and so is the position of all of the parties involved.
E si aggrava la contrapposizione tra le parti.
He calls for peace between Christians.
Io penso a voi, fratelli e sorelle ucraini.
I think of you, my Ukrainian brothers and sisters. Think, this is a war between Christians. You all have the same baptism. Christians are fighting each other. Think of this scandal. We will all pray because prayer is our protest in front of God in the time of war.
E preghiamo tutti.
The Pope's comments come at a pivotal time for eastern Ukraine. Peace talks have repeatedly failed to gain traction, and pro-Russian separatists are advancing in a conflict that has already killed more than 5,000 people.
I take with me the passport and military ID of Russian soldiers, Russian officers who were come to us, and leave it together with that. This is the best evidence for the aggression and for the presence of Russian troops.
We must judge the existing agreement, Minsk, and any future agreement with Russia by the actions Russia takes on the ground, not by the paper they sign. And given Russia's recent history, we need to judge it by its deeds, not its words. Don't tell us, show us, President Putin. Too many times President Putin has promised peace and delivered tanks, troops, and weapons.
We have been hiding in the bathroom for a week with my neighbour from the second floor, hugging each other. We didn't eat anything. There wasn't even any bread or food, nothing at all.
Another bloody day in Debaltseve. This truck is carrying the bodies of 7 civilians killed in the besieged town. The Ukrainian military is deploying new units to reinforce its beleaguered troops in Debaltseve. Some are new recruits with little frontline experience. They're being told what to do in case there is shelling. They look nervous to be on the battlefield. It's not just regular forces fighting here, there are also paramilitary groups. This is the Donbass Battalion, formed as a volunteer group, now part of Ukraine's National Guard. They are hardened fighters who've taken part in some of the biggest battles in eastern Ukraine. But they suffered heavy losses in the summer during Kiev's crushing defeat at Ilovaisk. The separatists are calling the battle for Debaltseve Ilovaisk 2. In the trenches, weary soldiers talk politics. They hope Kiev's international allies will come to their aid.
We were not ready for such a serious invasion. If America and Europe could give us military and political support, this could be solved in a peaceful way.
But some of Kiev's allies are concerned that pouring more arms into this conflict will only deepen it. As the debate goes on over whether or not the international community is going to send arms to Ukraine, and Kiev's international allies scramble to try and resolve this conflict, the battle rages on, and really those 7 civilians that you saw at the start of my report, the 7 bodies being taken to the morgue earlier today, they are the latest names that are being added to a death list that is growing by the day.